Hey everybody, what's up and welcome to episode 60 of Into the Necrosphere, the final installment for 2020. And as is only fitting for this time of year, I am counting down my favorite 10 records of 2020 alongside my friends Zen and Tentakel of the mighty Omega Infinity, a top 10 triple threat throwdown as I promised you last week on my show with Kelly T of Kelly T Reviews. If you haven't checked out that episode yet, definitely make sure that you do. She did her top 10. I counted down from numbers 20 to 11 and threw in a little mathematical fuck up for good measure, which you guys will find out about on this episode. But yeah, definitely make sure you check that episode out. And this one was a long one. And there's plenty of banter and shit talk and all sorts of discussion about what has been, in my opinion, one of the best years for music that I can recall. I mean, let's be honest, 2020 for the most part was a complete and utter abortion, but when it comes to death and black metal, it has been a vintage year. Just a couple of quick reminders before we get started. If you don't yet follow the show on social media, then definitely make sure that you follow me on Instagram and Facebook at Into the Necrosphere. On Twitter, I am at iNecrosphere. If you want to buy yourself some Into the Necrosphere merchandise, tied for things to get Grandma for Christmas, then head over to Teespring. The address there is www.teespring.com-into-the-necrosphere, and you can buy yourself a hoodie, a t-shirt, a face mask, some leggings, and if you are wearing it, tag me on social media so that I can see that you sporting your threads. Just don't tag me in a picture of Grandma wearing her leggings, because I don't want to see that whatsoever. Anyway, a couple of other things. There's going to be no demo of the week and no reviews this week, but I would not have been able to let 2020 come to a close without spitting some fire in the general direction of the likes of Tommy Lee, John Karabi, Corey Taylor, and various other fucking posers. So stick around at the end of at the end of the show for that. And then also, I just wanted to say thank you very much to everybody for tuning into the show for the last 12 months. The channel and the podcast has continued to grow in leaps and bounds, way beyond what I ever expected. So, particularly considering how much alternatives there are in both metal and otherwise. The fact that folks are listening to the podcast and taking the time to message me on social media and letting me know how much they enjoy it, and are buying merchandise, and are telling folks on Bandcamp that they listen to the podcast and that they should come on the podcast. I massively appreciate that. I do not take it for granted, and it just motivates me to try and do an even better show for you guys in 2021. I am going to have, or already have, some very cool guests in the pipeline. I do want to say thank you as well to everybody that's been on the show this year. I know there's a few guests that listen to the show fairly regularly. It's not easy booking guests for this podcast. I try and work outside of the record labels as much as I can so that I'm not beholden to anybody. So I kind of have to work on spec to see who I think might be interesting to talk to, who'd be willing to talk to me, and then also who'll actually respond to an email. So, it's kind of like a job all by itself, but I've been really, really lucky to have some great people on the show. And I just want to say thank you to everybody that gave me an hour plus of their time, along with some great conversation. And speaking of great conversation, you're about to hear one now. Please welcome back to the show, Zen and Tentakel of Omega Infinity. Let me start by welcoming you guys back to Into the Necrosphere. And firstly, great to talk to you again. But secondly, I think I may have mentioned this to you, Tentakel, on private message separately. But I think you guys are the third most popular episode that I did all year. So I mean no disrespect saying it. I'm surprised by how kind of people responded to it, because you have certain bands that are big, and people are gonna really sort of get into it. But obviously, Omega Infinity was still relatively new. I think to me that's interesting, because it's indicative of how much people enjoyed the record. And how eager people were to hear you guys speak, or to hear what you guys had to say. So, I as I said, very, very surprised by that. But like I said, very pleased to have you all back.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it is an interesting surprise considering it's the first release we've done. So I guess for a band that releases their first album, I guess the traction has been pretty good. However, that might have to do with everyone staying at home and listening to more music.
No, not a bad thing. And I think, I've spoken I'm sure I spoke to you guys about it. I've mentioned it to people before. Obviously you can't, nobody can tour in the current circumstances. It's changed the shape, I think, of the music industry probably for many years to come. But one plus is that, as you say, there's a captive audience at home now. And I think a lot of people are discovering a lot of new music. It's interesting also, I've noticed in how different the top 20s and top 40s and top 10s are this year that have been published so far. There definitely seems to be there's a much bigger variety in people's lists than I can recall seeing, which in part suggests that 2020 was a great year for music, which I think we would all agree on. Yes. But in part, again, there's a lot of very random, very kind of underground bands that have been that have been highlighted on some of those lists. So, I think people are taking the time to go out and actually discover new music and, try out new things. Maybe they jump on Black Metal Promotion for a couple of hours and check out some of the bands on there. Mm-hmm. But I don't think it's a bad thing at all for, smaller bands or bands that are new to the scene, or a project like Omega Infinity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I noticed that as well. So 2020 has really put out a few great releases, not actually a few, just many of them. And I'm still thinking as to whether it is the fact that people are listening more to music, like they have the time to discover new stuff more and more. So naturally you get some traction in social networks because someone is discovering something and posting it, and you like. You see the post and okay, I gotta check that out. You check that out as well. I think there is maybe a new dynamic to bands or outputs getting known through the social media channels, or is it really the fact that there is more good music than before? I don't know, because bands have more time to like put out stuff, compose. I don't know, but certainly, in terms of music, 2020 has been a great year.
Yeah, and I have to say, I probably, I'm curious to get your opinions on this, but I probably err towards the latter. I do think 2020 has had a lot. I mean, there's been great music for the last several years, and I feel like almost every year, the top 20 list gets harder to compile, but this year to me has just been extraordinary. And I've been pretty busy with the work, so I would say the amount of time I've been able to listen and discover stuff is probably on a par with what I would normally have. But there's kind of two stories about 2020 for me. One is the fact that I think a lot of bigger names put out records that at least I found pretty disappointing, ones that I've been really looking forward to. And then they were all shown up by, a lot of bands that were either on their first or second record, just putting out just extraordinary music. And from my perspective, particularly in black metal, raising the bar to a point where, you kind of go, if this is what the standard is now, what is 2021 going to bring? Or, how much of the old guard is still going to be able to compete against bands like Selbst, Aversio Humanitatis, bands like that we'll, I'm sure, discuss further on down the episode. But it's been very interesting to me. There's bands I really looked forward to hearing this year. I mean, the new Now Nathrak was one. I couldn't stand it. I think it's a terrible record. I think the new Inquisition album is a complete pile of shit. It just, albums that from bands that I would put in probably my top 10 favorite bands of all time just fell by the wayside. In the face of all of these young bucks, including yourself, coming onto the, I know you guys aren't young bucks, but you know what I mean, coming onto the scene of just putting out something extraordinary.
There's not much context in which anyone will call me young buck again, I think. Thanks.
Hungry lions. All right, well, on that note, let's get started with a countdown. Now, I'm going to have to make a confession right at the start of this, and I feel like a fucking moron saying it, but when I did my episode with Kelly T that is actually coming out today, I think I got a little overexcited and missed the numbering on my list and went one further than I should have. So on last week's episode, I said that the new Napalm Death is my number 11. It's actually not. It's technically my number 10. So I did talk about it at length on last week's episode. I don't think there's a whole lot more I could say about it, but throes of joy in the jaws of defeatism. Phenomenal record. My number 10. I know that Tentakel, I know you really like it as well. Zen, are you much of an Napalm Death fan? Did you get into the record at all?
No, I haven't had much of a chance to actually listen to it, but I've never really been able to get into Napalm Death overall. There's just something that doesn't really strike a chord with me.
Yeah.
So I can't say that it registers on mine.
All right, no, fair enough. Okay, well, since you're off mute, and since I've said all I'm gonna all that's worth saying really about the new Napalm Death, let's come on to you. So you're number 10 for this year, sir.
Mine will be Aversio Humanitatis, if that is indeed correct, and the album Behold the Silent Dwellers.
Fantastic record. Let's pause on discussing that in more detail because it is going to feature further down on my list as well. And let's move on to Tentakel. Your number 10.
I'm kind of unprepared. I'm trying to desperately find my list. I'm just checking the Facebook message where we posted that.
Yeah.
Because I was nearly inclined to change all of that again. Because
mine literally got tweaked up into the last hour before I recorded with Kelly. It was like I changed my score. I had to kind of come up with a scoring mechanism this year, and eventually kind of evolved into 3 decimals because there was just so little separating some of the bands, in my opinion. I just thought that, like I said, I mean, we wax lyrical about that enough now. But yes, so you're number 10 if you have it.
I have it. I have it in the Facebook post. That would be the new Green Carnation album, Leaves of Yesteryear. So I've always been a big Green Carnation fan. Since I've seen them in Wacken, I think, where they played the Light of Day, Day of Darkness in full, and was completely blown away. And since then, my wife and I have started following them, and it's great that they have put out an album again after all these years, because I think they disbanded 10 years ago, or even way even longer. I don't know, but this is a really, really strong comeback album. I really like it.
Yeah, Green Carnation has always been one of those bands for me that I feel like I should like a lot more than I do. I must confess, I didn't really spend a lot of time with Leaves of Yesteryear, and I know that I know that a lot of people spoke of it really, really highly. I think the Metal Archive average score is 90%, and I don't actually think I read a single bad review about it. So I do definitely think that's something that I need to look into possibly in a little bit more detail. But when you say you and your wife are following them, do you follow them like the Grateful Dead? Like whenever they play, you guys trek with them across Europe?
Well, whenever they are in northern Germany, we try to catch them, and I think I've seen them 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
And then they stopped touring because I think that was what broke their neck back then when they stopped. I think they had a US tour that went not very well financially, and they said, sorry guys, but we can't do that. We can't do that anymore. We can't just invest and then just invest and we don't get anything out of it, so we can't continue the band. And I think that was the reason why they stopped. So I was all the more happy when they announced a new album for Season of Mist.
Yeah,
which is I really hope they start touring again. I mean, whenever that's possible again. That's the next thing that we need to like.
I mean, you guys both have bands that are outside of Omega Infinity that are touring bands that play live. What are your thoughts first and foremost around I guess the proliferation of these live streams? I have to confess, from my own perspective, initially I thought it was incredibly dumb, and then I watched, I think, the Down live stream. And even though I'm not the biggest fan of Behemoth anymore, I saw the Behemoth live stream, and it's kind of starting to grow on me a little bit. I have to confess. I feel like enough bands are doing a great job with it now to where I genuinely think it's going to become a viable means of performing live or putting on shows. Depending on how long things last for. I mean, it's never going to take the place of being in a crowd or having the amps in your face, but it's certainly a decent go-between for the time being.
Yeah, I think it's a good. I actually think it's a good idea. And at first, I was a little unsure as to how it would go. And there's been some really high quality ones that have come out, and particularly the Behemoth one. But I think people, because I wasn't sure as to, I guess, how people like fans would actually find it, or kind of how effective it would be. And it turns out it is quite effective. And I think due to the kind of world circumstance, a lot of people are using it to are actually consciously supporting bands by doing it. They're making a choice to say, I really want to go and watch this, and even I'll even buy a ticket, but if I don't watch it then, I can watch it in a couple of days or so. And so they're actually willing to kind of show that support, because at the end of the day, they know that artists are suffering through this time. So I think it is doing a really good job for bands that can actually do that. I mean, with us, we're kind of spread across the world. Well, we're in kind of 3 countries, so everything for us would kind of need to be pre-recorded and then put up live, because for us, you can't necessarily mix and do all that sort of thing remotely, especially with violin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if we're talking about Neo.
Yeah.
I mean, so me as like a fan, I totally love it. I have to admit, because I love going to concerts and I love meeting people. But then again, I'm still kind of the introvert guy who rather sits with his wife on the sofa with a bottle of wine and watching those live streams. I haven't watched that much. I have watched the Green Carnation one. And I have watched the first Enslaved, which is like, that's after Genesis, that's my top bands of all time. And I try to catch everything that whenever they are in the area, I try to watch them, and I certainly did watch the live stream, and it was like was kind of strange, because those guys are quite the performers, and they interact a lot with fans, and the fans weren't there, and they were visibly a bit confused as if to what to do between songs. But again, this had like a different feeling, like a more intimate feeling, because I know a lot of people who have been watching the live stream as well, and there was kind of an exchange on social media going on Facebook, like, hey, we're watching Enslaved right now. And it was like, in a way, it felt connected, but, through the new word to word, whatever. It had a different feeling, an intimate feeling, and not necessarily a bad one. It's like you could interact with people who you wouldn't normally be able to interact with on a normal live gig, because like I've friends everywhere, and I know of friends that have been watching from southern Germany, from other countries, whatever, and it was like this social media thing of, we're doing this together now, which is kind of cool. And I think for the bands, I mean, for the band that I played in, that Totgelichter played this year we played a gig. We played 3 gigs after 3 years of nothing, no rehearsing, no doing anything. And I think that would stay for a while like this, because we just don't have the time and energy to invest anymore like we did before. And those 3 gigs felt great. But I also realized I don't want to do this at this point in my life. I don't want to play live, because I simply don't have the time. So I'm not even thinking about like organizing a live stream. And for us, it really doesn't make sense because we have been in a lucky position that we don't need to make money out of this. We don't need this to survive. For bands that need to survive on that, I mean, I think that's a great way of giving something to the fans that they can. And I don't know how the bands did that, but the live streams that I watched was like, okay, there is like a base ticket price, but you can give more if you want to, and like it's like a big tip pot where you can just support the band for what they're doing, and I think it went quite well for many bands. And yeah, I mean, if you don't have like live gigs, you can sell merch, or you do sell merch via online shops. But I think it's a different thing than if you play a gig. You always have merch with you. You know, people are there, they buy stuff.
I was about to say, it's like an impulse buy. You see the band, this is amazing. I want to go buy five T-shirts.
Yeah, I think the bands need to find like a source of income, and that's a great way to do it in this pandemic. I'm not like, but it's not a real live concert. No, it isn't, but it's a way to like show support to the bands you like, and in a way continue with a little piece of normality. You know what I mean?
I agree. I think the interesting
better
thing
than nothing.
Yeah, agree.
Definitely.
And the thing is, I think from a fan perspective, the interesting thing is it potentially could evolve into another creative outlet for bands, because so you already, you look at how Behemoth did theirs, and they had the fire, and they had kind of this, I can't remember like the backdrop and things like that they have, but there's actually a lot that bands are going to be able to do. And based on the technology that's available today, at probably not a huge amount of cost, bands that maybe couldn't go out, for example, with a huge stage show or whatever the case may be, they may be able to go out and replicate something that's interesting and something that's different. So I think, if we do return to normalcy, or should that day ever come, I think what could potentially happen is that this is kind of a channel that remains, but it's a different way to experience the band. The other thing, actually, Zen kind of reminded me of this, and it's something I've thought about quite a lot, but I feel like having had shows taken away from people almost has kind of reiterated the value of music to them again. I think that we were kind of going down this dangerous path for a period of time, where for a lot of folks, because they no longer have to physically part with money to buy a CD, they don't hold the physical media in their hands. I feel like music had become very commoditized, and people had lost the kind of value in, or didn't place as much value in music as what necessarily they may have done before. And I think that used to come out, or certainly came out, in my opinion, into how people responded at shows, for example. In the early 90s, if you went to a Slayer show, you were very likely to come away with a black eye and a couple of bruises. But I went to the last Slayer show at Wembley, and it was calm. It wasn't. I mean, people were headbanging and stuff like that, but it was nothing like the craziness that I saw the first time that I saw them. And I think that, to me, is a good example of what I'm talking about, where that commoditization has kind of devalued things a little bit. I almost feel like that's going to be restored now that people have had it taken away from them for a period of time. How long that lasts for, if we return to normalcy, I don't know. But I definitely think the musical landscape is going to be very different once things reopen, and once things can go back to normal.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty awkward if everyone's in bubbles around the show.
They could get into those zorbing bubbles and march, like safe moshing, rolling into each other. Okay, so let's move on to number 9. I actually realized, as I was looking at my list now, I think I might have kept I might have mixed up my worst bands of the year list with my best bands of the year. But at number 9, I've got Omega Infinity, Solar Spectre, a bunch of fucking bums from who are on Season of Mist.
Why would you?
Are they any good? Is it any good?
Like I said, I got the best and worst of lists mixed up. Okay. But no, look, I said to you guys when I reached out to you originally, that I only invite bands on whose music I actually genuinely enjoy, and I was fucking blown away by this record. Absolutely loved it. And
Thanks.
in doing my calibration, I mean, this is kind of where you start getting to those fractions of a decimal. There's so much about this album that I love. I think it's kind of punishing. It's incredibly atmospheric. It has these moments of really sort of stark beauty that kind of almost catches you by surprise. It's creative. I think it's a beautiful evolution of kind of the black metal that I grew up listening to and loving, with all of these interesting elements added into it. And once again, congratulations. I think you guys did a phenomenal job. And I really do think that folks have responded to this very, very well. I remember talking to Katie at Season of Mist as well, and she was loving the record also. And initially it sort of seemed to be a bit of a slow burn, and it felt to me like it started to take off significantly. And I know from conversations we've had that there's a second record in the offing, and we may see it in 2021.
That's a plan.
Oh no, it will be the plan is you will see it in 2021. So there's not much to go on it at the moment. So
yeah. But how do you guys feel about the response to the album and how people have I guess kind of really sort of willingly and gladly embraced it?
Honestly, it's been quite a surprise, because it is quite an abrasive listen, especially if you're not used to that sort of wall of noise. But if you can sit through it and sit back and listen, I think it is one that grows on people. And if you have the patience to listen to it, you can kind of get your head around all the nuances and the subtleties within the kind of music so that it all makes sense. But it's just getting past that initial bludgeoning, I guess. So if you can get through that, you may be rewarded.
Yeah, I would say it's definitely one of those records where if you were going around to a friend's house and you said, listen, you need to hear this band, and you put on, like, the way that one does in those situations, you play 2 minutes of a track. I think whoever's listening to it might not entirely get it. It's one of those albums that, from my perspective, will only really kind of land with the listener if they listen through to it from start to finish. It's an album that makes an incredible lot of sense if you undertake the journey from beginning to end. I think if you take it in bite-sized chunks, like a lot of folks take in music in the Spotify era, I think it could very easily be lost on you. And again, that to me is a shame about how Spotify is, regardless, because I grew up in an era where you listened through to everything back to back, even if you despised the songs that were in halfway through the record, and eventually they would kind of grow on you and become some of your favorites too. I don't think there's a weak moment on this record, but again, I think the reward comes in listening to it, for its through from the beginning through its entirety.
Yeah, I think back in the day it was more about when it was less digital. You listen through from start to finish there was almost a sense of respect for digesting the whole thing, getting through the moments that you didn't think weren't as good, and getting to the end and then re-listening and reading the lyrics as you went through, and just completely immersing yourself in the experience. And now these days it's just you listen to one song, or people listen to one song, you might hear 10 seconds and they're put off and they'll go to the next band, or they might skip an album or something. So it's kind of, if we could go back to those days, that'd be great.
The thing is also, you notice it in how bands are sequencing records nowadays as well. There's a lot of bands where you can listen to it and I'll instantly go like, why did they put this this track at track number 8? It would have been a brilliant second track or brilliant first track. It's like there's not nearly as much care put into how a record is sequenced or what the flow of the album is going to be as what they used to be. And I kind of get it. It's like there's the saying, show me the behavior and I'll show you the incentive. There is no incentive necessarily for a lot of bands to put thought into how our record is sequenced. But for me, to this day, the best records are the ones where it's that start to end journey. That's what I want to go on when I listen to an album.
Yeah, I think with the projects I work with, it's all I don't want to compromise on the integrity of how the album flows. Like you write the album how you want it to be written, not necessarily how you think what will be bring people in straight away. It's so the whole idea of start to finish and it being a journey is how it should be and how all artists should be writing their albums.
Yeah. So, like I said, my number 9, Omega Infinity Solar Spectre. Zen, yours?
My number 9 is a Polish black metal band, Odraza. And the title I cannot pronounce.
I had to correct myself multiple times in the episode that I did a review for that record. It's called Rexom.
I might give it a try because my wife's Polish, but...
So it is Rexom?
Rexom. It's got like a... I'm probably bullying. But no, I say bullying. I'm probably butchering the language as we speak. But that was a little further up on my list, but phenomenal. And it's been an absolutely phenomenal
by the way,
year.
guys, if I may interrupt, I think it's pronounced Shetchom.
Sure.
Oh, really?
But yeah.
It has been a phenomenal year for Polish black metal. I think in my top 20, there's I think at least 4 or 5 bands.
I'm the same.
And again, it's like, in terms of like the bar being raised, it's astounding to me how good some of these bands have become. Poland and Iceland just on fire at the moment.
Absolutely. Yeah, the Adraza one it's such a unique kind of almost quirky black metal, which has a very, it almost feels like this urban kind of grimy urban feel to it, which kind of, even within that, it kind of sets it apart from a lot of the other Polish black metal bands. It's really hard to describe, and I just keep going back to it because it has all these little things that you don't hear, and you keep listening to it, and more comes up, and more it makes sense.
And it's right down to the cover art as well, because the cover art isn't skulls and inverted crosses and stuff like that. It's just that picture of that woman's face. And I agree with you. There is kind of almost sort of an urban type of atmosphere to it, which is something that, interestingly, again, a lot of the Polish bands seem to be moving away from a lot of the typical sort of iconography and imagery and things like that. But they're doing it in such a way where they're pulling it off extraordinarily well. And again, I think Adraza are certainly one of the best to have done that this year. Right, Tentakel, number 9 for you.
I'll go with the And Oceans album, Cosmic World Mother, which is also kind of comeback album. That I really, really loved. And Oceans is, I think I can say that's part, or a small part of the inspiration that sparked Omega Infinity at one point, because this, I think they have been really ahead of their time with the God album. Like, I don't know when that came out, but in 1998 or something.
I think it's 98 or 2000.
No.
2001?
Maybe later. No, the 98 was the one before then. But
Symmetry of Eye and Circle of Earth.
Yeah. But the God album is like, to me, and still is like, it's the culmination of like, it's the combination of like synth elements and black metal and extreme metal is, so it's still my number 1 album, like the album to show whenever anyone talks about mixing black metal and like electronic elements. That's the album for me.
Yeah.
And to see that they put out another album, like when the news came, I was like, well, like fanboy mode, and it certainly has lived up to his expectations. There has been, I think, one album after the God by And Oceans, like this Cypher album, which was more like industrial, like dance style. I think at one point they said we did want to write something that would work live because for whatever reason they said, like, I remember an interview where they said the God was too fast, the blast beats would be not like they couldn't do it live or whatever, something like that. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I remember wrong, but I think they wanted to do something more, something that would connect more to the audience. And then they disbanded. They put out an Havoc Unit album, and then that was it. I think that was, and now they are back, and they sound like kind of in between the Symmetry of Eye and the God album, and it's like I just love it.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a superb record. It was it barely, probably like on my top 20, it probably made number 21. But again, frankly, it's just been the nature of this year that record could have been a number 1, had it come out 5 years ago. Or it should certainly have been in the top 10 had it come out in any other year. I agree with you. I think it's stunning. And great comeback as well. Yeah. And another winner from Season of Mist, who are your label as well. Speaking of Season of Mist, my number 8 is another Season of Mist release, Tombs Under Sullen Skies. I have never made a secret about how much I love this band. I think Mike is a total fucking badass. He's a great guy. I'm fortunate enough to have struck up a friendship with him since he and I have, done a couple of podcasts together. And I think, to me, what I love about this record, it's the album that showcases him as an artist, probably at the most confident I think he's been in the history of the band. And that's by his own admission, but it really, really comes across on the record. He's, when I say confident, he's creatively confident. You can hear that he genuinely enjoys what he's doing. He believes in what he's doing. And what that's resulted in is a record that's much, much heavier than the Grand Annihilation. It's a lot darker. It's a lot more varied. And it takes all of the things that he loves about music, the black metal, the kind of slam, New York hardcore kind of thing that he sometimes throws in there, the Celtic Frost, Triptychon, kind of dark avant-garde atmospheres, the fields of the Nephilim, Gothic influences, and it just rolls it up into one just fucking mean and nasty record that is just brilliant from start to finish.
Like, to be honest, I only recently heard that. I didn't get much of a chance to actually go through it, but I know that I would absolutely love it. But give me another month or so, and I'll be able to possibly put it in my top 10.
Yeah. Tentakel, you a fan of Tombs, or have you spent much time with this record?
I have to admit, this is something that I feel after this talk I need to check out. So
that's always the thing with these talks. Like when Kelly and I was talking last week, it was the same. It was like she'll mention something. She mentioned the Fredendal, the new Fredendal record, and I was like, as I was editing the record together, the episode together, I was listening to some of the stuff again that she'd mentioned, and I was like, "Fuck, how did I miss this album?
Yeah,
it's absolutely brilliant." But that's kind of the fun of these conversations.
Yeah, but this is like 2020 was absolutely crazy in terms of releases that you really need to check, and it's impossible to follow everything. And I have to admit, like Tombs, I have no idea how they sound. I have to admit that. I will check them out right after we finish here. But I might have shied away from them a little bit because it felt like Tombs and the cover, Doom. It looks like a Doom album, and I'm just. I got a problem with Doom. Not well with most of it. Or let me put it another way. I've got a problem with music where I can go make a coffee in between two like drum beats.
In between two riffs, yeah.
So and this kind of felt like this might be something like it. So I might have shied away from it a little bit. But yeah, I'm going to check it out.
Yeah, I suspect it will be something you enjoy. It's definitely the furthest thing from Doom. But if you like all of the things that I mentioned before, if you like black metal, if you like kind of that avant-garde darkness that Tom Fisher enjoys deploying in Triptychon, or if you like Fields of the Nephilim, it's a spectacular record. right, Zen, over to you for number 8.
My number 8 is actually the And Oceans album,
Mm-hmm.
which we've already discussed.
Great record.
It is.
Tentakel, number 8 for you.
Oranzi Pazuzu, The Master in Kinsey.
So that's actually a great segue into my number 7, because my number 7 is Oranzi Pazuzu as well. For a significant period of time this year, because this album came out in April, I think. This was my number 1 album of the year. I was so blown away when I heard this the first time, and I've got I think I mentioned this when we spoke. I'm an audio nut, so I've got a very decent hi-fi, and I literally just sat mesmerized listening to it on great hi-fi with great subwoofer, with where everything on the record could just kind of come out. I'll say it again. This is similar to what I mentioned before about the Omega Infinity record. This is an album you have to listen to from start to finish.
Yes.
I've played it to a few people, and if you play them, half a song, they're like, "What is this fucking bullshit?" and they just forget it. And then when they listen to the whole thing end to end, they're like, "Good God, this is incredible." But honestly, like when I listen to guys like this, I'm so awestruck by the level of creativity that goes into this, because they there's bands that write riffs, and as you say, there's doom bands that'll write a riff and a beat that takes 5 minutes to complete. But then there's bands that do stuff where it doesn't feel like there's any sort of creative constraints to what they do. I mean, you could hear shades of fucking Trent Reznor and Radiohead in this just as much as you can hear Mayhem, and it just all comes together so seamlessly. It's phenomenal, absolutely fucking phenomenal. There's no other way to describe it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yes.
Zen, did you pay much attention
I actually
to this
think
record?
it's. Oh, absolutely. This is in my number 7 as well.
Oh. So it's good alignment.
I was trying to keep that. I was trying to keep that quiet. So, but no, I actually like this far more than the previous album.
Yeah, me too. I think this is a career best for them so far.
I think Oranzi Pazuzu is. It's for me. It's like a band that I tend to forget how great they are if I'm not listening to them. But I like once in a while I keep thinking about I need to listen to them again, and then I listen to whatever I don't know, any album of them, and it's like, this is fucking great. This is really fucking great. And it's like while I'm listening to it, I remember, okay, this is how great they were, and then like 1 or 2 weeks after it, I tend to put them aside a little bit. But it's really something. I think the reason for that is, as you said, it's like you need to have the time to dwell into it, like to really suck up the essence. And you can't do that if you just like let's listen to one track, or I'm going to show anyone one track. That doesn't work like this. You really have to put on the album, and then it's completely. It's another world. I don't know where they draw the inspiration from, but it's certainly not from this dimension. It's from somewhere else.
No, I totally agree with you. Have either of you seen them live? Because I've heard from quite a few folks that the Oranzi Pazuzu live experience is something to behold.
Yeah, no, I've seen some photos and whatnot. It just looked very dark, so I have no idea what goes on.
I think a few working colleagues of mine have seen them on the Roadburn and on several other occasions, and they said like it's really a great experience. And then, I remember I tried to watch the Oranzi Pazuzu live stream, but this didn't work for some reason.
Yeah,
they had some kind of crazy cuts. Lighting was like this felt unpleasant, like not unpleasant like. Because of the music, if you're not trained in the ways of extreme metal, I think it can be like an unpleasant experience. I think you need some kind of experience with extreme metal music to actually enjoy this. But the live stream, for some reason, the visuals didn't connect. Like it felt. It was like that one time where I went to a Mayhem concert and I couldn't stand it because I had to go out because the bass was so fucking annoying loud that it really hurt. Like, I don't know why they would mix it like this, but like something. I couldn't watch it. I couldn't watch the live stream because of the lighting and the cuts. It was like too much.
I watched a bit of the live stream as well. One of the things I didn't like about it is I didn't like the sound. I thought everything sounded very, very thin. For a band that sounds so dense and so layered on record, that I didn't like. It just didn't work for me. When was that Mayhem show that you went to go and see?
Oh, that's like 10, 15 years. I don't know.
Okay. So it
was in the Maniac era.
Yeah.
Like it was still with Maniac when he had this little when he had like this coat and this blade thing on his arm. Something I don't know when that was.
Because a lot of people were complaining about how high up in the mix Necro Butcher's bass is on Demon as well, which is why I was wondering.
It might be his thing, maybe.
Possibly. I wouldn't be surprised if he asked for it to be done. But I did see them live last year at the Incineration Festival here in London, and I was fucking blown away. I thought they were incredible. I thought they did the new songs sounded amazing. Like all the old stuff sounded cool. And Attila for me is one of the greatest black metal vocalists to ever live. I think what that guy can do with his voice is astonishing.
It's fantastic.
Okay, so Tentakel, you've blown apart some of our pacing here, which means that you're back up now to number 7. So you're number 7, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
Number 7. Well, Thy Catafalque, the Nave album.
Right.
That's also on Season of Mist. It's these one. It's actually, I think it's one guy from Hungary, and he keeps putting out albums like every other year, I think. So pretty fast succession of the last one, which has been released last year, and it's absolutely like progressive, avant-garde, extreme, everything metal. I think it's also like this effect that I mentioned with Oranzi Pazuzu. You have to, when you listen to it, it's like completely genius and you're loving it, and then after a while you tend to forget how great they are. I think they are very, very underrated, and I think that's mainly because there isn't. I don't know why. I think they don't play live. I'm not sure about that. But the albums are really, really something. It's if you love extreme parts with like progressive and avant-gardistic elements, this is. I think the guy is a genius in terms of composing and arranging and everything, and he does it all by himself with a little help of fellow musicians, I think, but he's the main composer. And if you haven't listened to them, it's really hard to explain what they are about. But I suggest that they give it a try.
That is actually one that passed me by, and I'm encouraged to go and listen to it based on what you said. But I wanted to ask you another question, because there's 2 labels that feature very prominently on my lists this year, and that's Season of Mist and Debut Morti. What you guys, having had firsthand experience of Season of Mist, what is it about how that label is run, or about how that roster is managed, that is resulting in the sheer volume of just great music that they're putting out?
I think I know Michael a bit now since a few years, because we work together. Like I work for a distributor in Germany, and Season of Mist is our partner in France. So we meet like at least once in a year. Okay, not this year because you have this annual music conference in France. This year it was cancelled because of COVID. But I think Michael is kind of the guy, and I think his Facebook posts. I can't remember. It was something like he mentioned about why he would sign bands like this diverse area that they sign. I think he was stating something like, we want to be able to sign the most extreme shit, like revenge or mayhem or whatever. But at the same time, I want to put out like progressive stuff and hipster stuff, whatever. I think or I have come to know Michael as a guy who is mainly interested in great music. I think you could put it down like this. And then he doesn't do half-assed shit. I have to say that about him. It's like we talked about that at one of those conferences, and he was like, if you like start to sign bands that seemingly doesn't fit in what your label does, then do it right. Don't sign one of them, don't sign two of them, look for 5, 6, 7 of them, and then you employ people who know the stuff, and you do it right. You push it. I think that's what he does. And this is like over the years, Season of Mist has grown into one of the most diverse labels that I know, and it works. And they have their fan base for every of those directions that they like sign bands in, and it feels. I think how can I say that? It feels authentic that they do it. The people really are into the stuff, and they are into the stuff all at once. It's not like you only have this black metal stuff and you don't have only this progressive stuff. It works together. Yeah. And I think it works because of the people are into great music. I think, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean they're now that label now carries a similar sort of cachet to what I think Relapse for me used to be in the early days, or Candlelight or labels like that, whereby any time that something comes out on Season of Mist, I'm instantly interested. They've put out stuff I've not enjoyed, but I'm at the very least, they've won half the battle already, because anything they put out, I'm interested in listening to. Because then you have a very long-term working relationship with them as well through Neo Obliviscaris and things like that. Well, what's been your experience with them so far?
Well, we've had a really good relationship. We've been in contact with Season of Mist since 2012.
Yeah.
However, we released our second album through Season of Mist. So after the first album was released, we were actually asked by Season of Mist as to whether or not we were signed at the time. And at that point in time, we were actually signed to Code 666. And so we had to ultimately wait till our next album to actually sign with them. But they really don't care what other people think about their choices in bands. It's, Michael's a huge music fan. He loves the diverse range of bands that he's interested in, and everyone that works within Season Mist, some of them are in, really strange bands and whatever, and they have this really good mixture of people that kind of push it along, and kind of no one questions ultimately what you do with your music. They may have thoughts or whatever, but you can ultimately do whatever the fuck you want, write whatever music you want, because they believe in all their artists, and if that's what the artist wants to do, they'll support that.
Yeah.
So we haven't had any issues over this whole time in regards to, whether it's Neo or Amiga Infinity. So it's I think, at the end of the day, they do what they want to do. They don't care what other people think.
Yeah, and that to me definitely comes out. It's a music label that is run by music fans. I mean, Katie, I know quite well, and I know how massively passionate she is about music, and I've had experience of other labels who will go unnamed, and a lot of the folks that you deal with there are just so jaded. You talk to them about music, and they're like they haven't really listened to anything new for the better part of 10 years, and I just don't know how you in a seller's market, how do you sell something that you have no passion over?
Yeah, absolutely.
Which to me explains why stuff like the new 6 Feet Under gets put out on a on a big label. And I'll leave it at that.
The shit list as well.
Oh, dude, what a piece of shit. Anyway, okay, so at my number 6, a band whose last record I think was number 4 when it came out, but Panzerfaust, to the Sons of Perdition, Chapter 2, Render Unto Eden. I had such high expectations of this album after Sons of Perdition Chapter 1, and I was absolutely not disappointed. I thought that what they did here was take everything great that they had already done on Chapter 1 and then kind of find about 5 or 6 extra creative gears, with some of the female vocals and some of the melodies that they threw in. The fact that you've got this great sort of interplay between melodic and screaming or guttural vocals, just fantastic. And when I interviewed Brock for the show, I kind of understood why Panzerfaust sound as they do, because he is he's a very intelligent guy, but he's a pretty intense cat, and there's definitely you get a sense of his personality. Particularly after talking to him now, you get a sense of his personality in this band. But I know that they're already busy with Chapter 3. I feel like they've got a serious fucking job ahead of them to try and top what they've done. Yeah, this record is phenomenal. Either of you have a view on it?
Oh, I completely agree. The first album was amazing, and it was. And what they've done, I completely agree in regards to step up from the last one. And what they're doing is, there's lots of different elements from, the different areas of black metal, but it's at the same time, they're still doing something that I feel is completely unique in how it's put together and how it sounds. And for me, it's kind of unheard of in even the States. I mean, a lot of black metal there sounds completely different, but I think Panzerfaust is like completely ahead of the rest of the black metal bands there.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, and I think the uniqueness is something that stands out as well, and that's something that's been incredible to see this year, is how many bands have brought out records that kind of sit fairly comfortably under the black metal banner, but they all sound incredibly distinct. Like there was a period of time where a lot of black metal that was coming out sounded similar. Same with death metal, thrash. You have these phases or these periods in time where there's a particular trend or there's a particular sound that a lot of bands are going for. Whether that comes from the studio that everyone likes recording at or whatever the case may be. And this year, it was like, it's been building up, but particularly in 2020, all bets were off. So many bands, put out stuff that just felt really creatively free. And Panzerfaust, great example of that. As really has been all the bands that I've mentioned so far.
Yeah, I think Panzerfaust, with Panzerfaust, you can now listen to them. You can hear one song and not be told who it is, and you can guess that it is them.
Yes,
there's something distinct about their sound that you know who it is straight away.
Yeah, totally agree.
I think the phenomenon that you mentioned, like you can all these bands are sounding distinctive, like they have their own kind of writing black metal. I think, I've been listening to black metal for like mid 90s, and I think around 2000 and ongoing. Following years, there has been a trend of all the old heroes went into we're now doing this black and roll thing. And while on the other hand, all those copycats like one-man black metal living room bands, they were popping out like mushrooms out of everywhere. Yeah. And what they did is they just went and try to record something extreme in terms of let's do fast drums, like guitar shredding. No, they don't care for melodies or anything. They just scream, and lyrics doesn't matter. But I think only in recent years bands have been evolving in terms of songwriting, in terms of compositions, arrangements, and I think bands today they tend to care more about those things, like how does a song, like how do I write a song, how does a song work, and I think you see that in bands like Panzerfaust with other bands as well that we are going to mention, I think later down this episode. And I think it's a really great time to be listening to black metal. For me, I have to say again, because I was kind of tired of it, like in the mid 2000s, because it was like generic. All the old bands did something else now. I'm not into the black and roll thing.
No.
I don't like punk too much sometimes, but not often enough. And I missed this sincerity in writing dark songs. To me, a dark song is not like just put on a blast beat and scream something about woods and Satan. That's not it. I want to feel, some deeper darkness, and I want to feel it through carefully arranged compositions and songs. I want to see that the artists put some thought into the songs that they created. That has been a thing for the last years, I think, with many bands, and Panzerfaust is a very good example.
Yeah,
it's my top. It would be in my top 20. It's my like point 12 on my list, and not because it's a bad album, but just there was too much from the top pressing it down.
It's so I think one of the things, and I was mulling this over as you were talking about it. I think one of the directions in which black metal went to that I also didn't care for was kind of the that really bombastic symphonic thing that bands like Dimmu Borgir started doing. And what I've loved about the sophistication that the genre has evolved over the last couple of years is that they've been able to do these very distinct, interesting things while still retaining that kind of grim, harsh, punishing element, that the bands that I like had. Because, I do love records like, Gorgoroth's, Ad Majorem, Satanas Gloriam. I like the blasting, anger and the rawness and stuff like that, much more so than I like anything that Dimmu Borgir ever did. But I do agree with you. There was a period of time where you either had one or the other. Either you had bands that were kind of too pretty, or you had bands that were just monotonous. And I feel like there's a lot of bands that have forged this middle ground between, sophistication and between, real sort of raw anger, and it's led us to where we are today, which is, we're kind of spoiled for choice in putting together a top 20, whereas before, you kind of, had to scratch through a pile of shit to get through to a top 10. But yeah, Panzerfaust, phenomenal. Zen, your number 6.
My number 6 is another Polish black metal band, Martva Ora, album Orbis Animus. I'm not sure if you've heard that one.
I've not. And as I said, I'm surprised because of how prominently Poland featured on my list. But no, I've not heard it at all, actually.
Yeah, they've because I discovered them a couple of months ago, and they'd toured with Magua. So they're kind of a lot quite similar in sound in some ways, yet they're still distinctly different. They have more of a bigger, more ominous kind of sound to them, and they have a nice bass and drum play throughout it. But just every element, the word that comes to mind with them is everything is just it's grim, it's ominous, and it's solid. Like there's nothing about it that there are no weak moments. It's just, as soon as I listened to it, the only word I had was solid, and it's incredible. So I definitely recommend checking them out, especially, and I think they'll be one to watch in the Polish scene.
Tentakel, number 6 for you.
Night Crown, actually. Impious, what's it called? Impious Viam.
Good choice.
Yeah, definitely. That's actually a new label that we started distributing, Noble Demon. And they have no, let me start again. That was kind of a new label that we distributed at where I work, and I was checking out the bands to get a feeling what they do. And I listened. I think the third one that they put out was this Night Crown album, and I was completely blown away by it because it felt like I'm a big fan of Swedish black metal, actually, from the mid-1990s. I was where I felt the Norwegian black metal went into this black and roll thing that I just didn't want to follow because to me it's not black metal. They can do like rock and roll punk stuff if they want, but to me always the Swedish ones. Like if you're not looking into the progressive avant-garde side of black metal, then for me Sweden, like all the melodic black metal bands. Blood Mine. Okay, that
I know there's always like a list. You know, like there's at least 10, but you're always draw a blank.
Yeah, and now I was like Blood Mine and what else now? But there are a lot of like Swedish black metal bands that I really love. And while Night Crown is a Finnish band, actually I think the drummer is the new drummer of Dark Funeral. And he's the new Dark Funeral stuff that he does live is like it's completely out there, which is another reason why I love Night Crown. It's not as fast and technical as Dark Funeral, and but the drummer is really it's like it's great to listen to this guy. And the album is very melodic, has very, very strong melodies, but at the same time, it's not like cheesy melodies. It's like more the dark side of things. So I definitely recommend that one.
Speaking of great Swedish black metal, did you check out the new Svartsen this year?
Not yet.
You definitely need to do. It's very, 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 very good. Yeah, no,
it's on my list to get around to.
Yeah, no, absolutely superb. But Night Crown was one of the bands when you sent your list through to me, I checked out and very impressed. I thought it was excellent. Yeah. Okay, number 5. I'm gonna say what my number 5 is, but I'm not going to go into detail on it because I know it's coming up further down on I know at least on your list, Tentakel. So I want to talk about it then. But Akhlys, Melano. Like I said, let's pause on that because that could very easily have been number. I mean, literally, like when we get now through to the business end of things, any of these really could be number 1. You're talking like whatever given day my mood is in is. It's what's going to be number 1, yeah. Zen, number 5 for you?
My number 5 is Selbst. Relatos de Augustia.
Let's pause on that one too because I've got that one further down on my list.
Yeah.
Tentakel, yours.
Where are we at? Which number? 5? Okay, so that will be Enslaved for me, the Homebound. As I said, Enslaved for me, my most loved bands of all time, right after Genesis. Yeah. So I can't but love it, and they implemented new elements. It's still Enslaved. It's like there is a progression from album 1 to this one, a steady one that you can follow if you listen to all the albums in one go, which I incidentally do. Every other year,
yeah,
I'm listening throughout the complete discography, and which is an interesting thing is Enslaved have just started like their web, like a web episode. By the way, what I mentioned with the live streams of bands being more intimate with their fans. This is certainly something that Enslaved did now with like I don't know if it's like if you can call it a doku. I think it's so far 4 parts on YouTube. Like they're visiting their homes, they are showing like the places where they rehearse for their first gigs and everything. It's just I just love the guys. It's like
So I saw some of that, and that was very interesting to me. I must confess, and I know I will change my mind on this at some point, because I've felt like that about the last 3-4 Enslaved records. I'm a big fan of the band as well. I think when I did my top 50 favorite black metal list, they were pretty high up on that list too. And I mean, I still regard them as black metal, even though they're not kind of pure black metal. But they, for me, their roots are in black metal. I don't think they've entirely forsaken those roots as much as they've kind of broadened their.
I think they embrace a spiritualistic side, like a shamanistic side of things.
Yeah. This record it has not yet grown on me, but like I said, I know if I spend more time with it, I may change my mind. Okay, at number 4 for me, and really like my top 5, I'm just realizing now, is a fucking Deborah Morty victory lap. But Ulcerate, Stare into Death and Be Still.
Good album.
I can't even begin to talk about how blown away I am by this album. I mean, I've been a fan of this band for a while now, and they've gotten better on every record, but I was not prepared for the step up that they took on this album. It's just dark. It's brooding. It's relentless. It's moody. It's like, this to me, because I don't really know what camp you even place them into anymore. Whether you kind of see them as a death metal band or a black metal band. I would see them as a death metal band, but if they are a death metal band, then it should be a wake up call to 99.9% of bands in that scene to go, this is what you guys should be doing, or this is the benchmark now in the scene. And anything less than this is really kind of mediocre. But it's mind-blowingly good. I don't know how else to describe it. I don't think there's a single weak moment on the entire album.
No, I kind of listening to it, there's just this amazing sense of like ugliness and brutality, but on the other hand, you've got there's this sense of melody to it, but not quite. I don't know. It's hard to describe that, but it somehow works and melds together. That it's incredible, and I think it's far better than anything they've done.
Yeah. Again, another one of those records that's an end-to-end listen, because they have all of those segues in between the songs, or at least they'll kind of end a song with like this really weird clean pick bit that sounds like something out of fucking Twin Peaks, and then it sort of goes into the next song. But what I love is every song is so distinct, and has this very sort of recognizable riff. It builds up to this massive crescendo. It's just like I said, what these guys have done from a songwriting perspective is just extraordinary to me. I think the only death metal band that can hold a candle to them right now in terms of songwriting ability is Immolation.
So for AM.
But it's just phenomenal. Did you check out the Ulcerate record, Tentakel?
Yes, definitely. It is on my list as well, but on my top 20, just because it has been higher up there, but then stuff came in and like pushed it back down.
Yeah.
But it's definitely on my top 20. It's a great album, and everything you said,
With me, it started off lower and it kind of worked its way up. And at one point, I was thinking this could be my number 1 of the year. It's just so good.
The only thing that I kind of sorry,
mine was exactly the same. It worked its way up from 18. So
the only thing that I need to kind of disagree is for me the atmosphere. The songs are to me not that distinctive. It's more like the album as a whole is like this big mass of darkness and brutality. And I haven't listened to it as much as I would have liked to, just because I didn't have the time to fully embrace it every time I wanted to listen to it. But it's definitely a great album.
Yeah, phenomenal. Okay, Zen, you're number 4.
That was also right as well.
Tentakel, number 4 for you?
I go with Cult of Fire, the double album, Moksha Nirvana.
I checked that out, and I remember really, really enjoying that. And again, it's one I just, for some reason, there was a bunch of stuff coming out at the time, and I probably didn't spend as much time with it as I should have. But yeah, I'll let you talk about it in a second. But I thoroughly enjoyed that album.
Definitely, it's to me one of those bands that really managed to do something unique these days, and it feels like nothing I've heard before, with all this like Hinduistic mythology stuff going on, like the implementation of instruments. It's definitely something. It's a world on its own. I don't know if there are black metal bands actually from India, because those guys are, as far as I know, I think one of those guys has been a Maniac Butcher from Czech, and I think the guys are from Czech.
Yeah, they are from Czech.
And but they do have some connections to like India. I don't know how deep that goes, but it certainly feels authentic. So as if someone has really explained the mythology and everything. And it's kind of a strange atmosphere on this album. And there is a side project of one of those guys. I think they have put out one album and nothing else. Like it's called Licatea Aflame.
Okay.
I think they have put out one album which can be described as like a base of technical death metal, but there is really so much more going on, and it also has this kind of strange, unique atmosphere. But this Cult of Fire album, I've started to listen to them with a second album, I think, which I can't pronounce because I think it's written in Sanskrit, and I don't know how to even translate the title. But it has got like Kali on it on the cover, and this was when I started really listening to them, and it was like this is something unique to me. It's like it feels positive at times, but still darkly positive.
Yeah.
Like I think in the Hinduistic mythology, you have like the creator gods and the destroyer gods, and both are equal parts of all the spiritual stuff going on. And it feels like the album, like this Moksha Nirvana album, feels like it's positive, but also very, very dark at its core. And it's both at the same time. It's like positive and negative, and it's just, I don't know. When I'm listening to that, I'm somewhere out there. It's great album. Definitely check it out if you haven't.
Awesome. Okay, so number 3, we mentioned it before. Aversio Humanitatis, Behold the Silent Dwellers, came out on Debum Morti. I was amazed when I spoke to Simon from Aversio Humanitatis at how unassuming the guy is about the music. Like we at one point he just made this kind of throwaway comment. It's like, yeah, no, we don't make particularly original stuff. It's just we just make the black metal that we like the way it sounds. And I thought to myself, like, do you realize what record you just put out? I mean, yes, it wears its influences, pretty boldly on its sleeve, but that's not a bad thing because it incorporates it in such a way that it comes out into an end product that, in my opinion, sounds very unique. Yeah. I think it's a phenomenally recorded record as well. I know Simon also did some work on Selbst as far as the mixing and stuff like that is concerned. His studio work is like audiophile grade, fantastic. He really, really knows his way around that. But yeah, I think the album is phenomenal. It's organic. It's really sort of riff heavy. I love the vocals of the album. I love how self-contained every song is. And for me, I think, again, they were their last EP. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but I know it came out in 2017, and I remember enjoying it. And then they sort of dropped off my radar a little bit, and it was my friend Marco from Stellar Master Elite that said to me that there was a new single that came out. Listen to that, and yeah, the rest of the record did not disappoint. Zen, you mentioned them on your list also.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'd only discovered them a couple of months ago or so, and kind of, because I'm usually one for, if an album cover looks good, I'm gonna listen to that. I mean, I'll listen to everything, but I saw their album cover and it looked modern, yet at the same time, it felt, I don't know, it felt that it would be unique in some way. And I think, despite, as you mentioned, it has so many different influences in it, but at the same time, it comes together in this atmosphere of being unique in its own entity. And I think, like Spain, where they're from, just seems to be coming up now and then. These bands are coming out now, which kind of are starting to raise the bar for other black metal bands. And this, I think, is incredible.
Yeah, no, I love it. And I agree with you about that cover. I love the cover as well. The EP, by the way, I just had a quick gander now. It's called Longing for the Untold, which, probably throws my cult credentials into question that I didn't remember that off the top of my head. But at the age of 40, there's too much fucking information to contain anymore. Like, there was a time where, I mean, it's still like that, where, if I listen to anything from like the early to mid 90s, I could probably recite every single lyric off the album, if you play Domination or Covenant or, the first Deicide album. But yeah, man, there's just too much good stuff coming out. Tentakel, your views on Aversio Humanitatis?
Great album. I have nothing to add. The only problem, no, not really a problem, I discovered them too late through your list when I asked you to how should we prepare for this for this episode now. Too late, but it's a really great album. Yeah,
no, I think phenomenal record, a record that I just mentioned a second ago as well, and Zen was on your list too. At my number 2, Selbst, Relatos de Angustia. I was such a massive fan of the self-titled record that came out in 2017. Enough of a fan that actually they were I think Selbst landed at like 37 on my top 50 favorite black metal bands list when I did that special about 20, 30 episodes ago. I was not expecting that Jonathan would follow it up with a record that is this good, though. It's got there's hints of the Aversio Humanitatis record on there. I think part of it is because Simon did the mixing and the mastering. But again, it's a beautifully organic, riff-heavy record with some of in my opinion, the best drumming that I've heard on a black metal album. For at least the last 5 years, super creative, just all over the place. And then Jonathan, being this really kind of softly spoken, shy guy, is just a complete and utter fucking beast on this album. His vocals sound great. The guitar performances sound extraordinary. Again, just a phenomenal record, and kudos to Deborah Morty for putting it out.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And the drums, as you mentioned, was one of the standout things. When you first hear it, the drums is one of the things that really stood out for me. And I think it is definitely a step up from their last album. I did love their previous album, but I think this was definitely the right move forward for them. Don't.
So you were going to say?
No. I was going to go off on a tangent, but
well, what I was going to say is I couldn't believe that in Venezuela there's talent like this, and it just kind of shows you that, again, I feel like black metal is the genre that seems to translate into the weirdest, wildest corners of the world. We just spoke about Czechia. There's so many bands in so many kind of far-flung corners of the world, and to find a band that this sounds this kind of fully realized and this fully formed in Venezuela, like I said, fronted by one of the most soft-spoken people, one of the nicest folks I've ever come across. It's just amazing, just such a surprise. And like I said, I'm so chuffed for how well this record has been received, because I know how much heart kind of went into producing it.
I think we'll find a lot of bands over the next few years or so from all these smaller country, more left of center countries producing really top quality black metal bands. And those bands, I think, will stand out because of, I guess, their natural influences around them. And I think it's only just going to get better and better. And, your kind of staple countries like Sweden, Norway, all those bands of black metal will kind of probably have to step up a bit.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Zen, your number 2?
My number 2 is actually, are we on to number 2 or 3?
2.
2? My number 2 is Akhlys.
All right, okay. I know. So I know what Tentakel's number 1 is. we can. Tentakel, do your number 2 real quick, and then let's get on to Akhlys, and then we'll kind of work our way back.
I have also a number 3 that I didn't mention.
Oh, sorry.
I'm just going to mention that very quickly. It's called Cora, and the album is called Timaeus. It actually was released, I think, in April earlier this year on Soulseller Records, and it's a great album. Just a few words if you are into like the later Dottheim Scarred. You should definitely check that one out because it has like all this avant-gardistic shit going on, and it's great. Check it. My number 2 would be Oceans of Slumber, A Return to Earth Below.
Yeah.
So I always loved them, but for some reason not as much as I would like to. But this changed with this album, and I think it's mainly because Oceans of Slumber is a band that I think the drummer has played in a grindcore band.
It was Insect Warfare, I think.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I think it's called World Extermination is the Insect Warfare record, which is, I'm not even the biggest grind fan, but that is fucking incredible.
I must check that out then. Yeah. But in previous albums, it was like sometimes it felt like they did want too much too fast. I didn't get into a kind of an album flow because then all of a sudden you had this blast beat going on, and I was always like, come on, dude, please chill. Just, you can drum, it's great, but calm it down a little bit. And I think with this album, they really managed to find their way that all elements really work seamlessly together. So definitely, I think Oceans of Slumber nowadays is exactly what I always hoped that they would be. Not that the other albums have been bad, but it's just like there are always like small distractions going on here and there, and I think this time they managed to like even everything out. It's smooth. It has a great flow, great drumming, great voice, great compositions. Great everything, a very, very, recommendable number 2.
And it's so great when you get a band like that where, you've listened to a couple of their records and you know there's talent there, and there'll always be like these 2-3 songs that you think are incredible, and then the rest of the album just doesn't quite get there, and then finally sort of everything clicks, and they put out an album that's just start to finish, wall to wall, fucking fantastic.
Yeah, this album's in my top 20 actually, so it kept on getting put down the list, and I think this is the first album where all the members changed over except for Dobber, the drummer, and Cami, the vocalist. So everyone else changed over, I think, from memory. And I don't listen to too many bands with female vocals. It's just a preference for me, but her vocals are amazing. We toured with them some years ago, and to hear her voice every night, incredible, like faultless every time, and it was one of the, I guess, the most outstanding female vocalists in metal today, I think.
Yeah. All right, so Tentakel, we've kind of skirted the issue long enough. I'll leave you to say your number 1, even though we all know what it is.
By now, it's Akhlys, the Melino album. Definitely, it's.
I don't know who wants to get started on the great Akhlys fellation session, but it's like.
See, I've been putting this off for a long time. The first album was phenomenal. It was incredible. It was brutal. It was just relentless. And this one, Tentakel brought it up to me a couple of weeks ago, saying you need to kind of check it out. And I've been putting it off because I've been writing for my kind of other projects. And so it's And then in the last 2 weeks, it's just been like pretty much most of what I've been listening to. So it's just, yeah.
Yeah, it draws you in. It's like every time I don't know what to listen to, it's okay, come on, give Akhlys a spin again. It's like this is one of the most darkest, like, I don't know how to describe it. It's really sucking every light out of everything there is. And this is what I want to feel. This is what I want to feel. This is exactly how I want my black metal to sound.
I think I remember you posting on Facebook, like, this is what darkness sounds like.
Absolutely.
when they did the stream for the record the first time.
This is exactly that. And I think this song, what's the third song? Is it the third song of it? I think it was one of the first singles. It keeps spinning in my head. Preferably when it's getting darker and later. And I think also the topic hasn't been their topic, this the sleep paralyzing thing that they have. It's kind of a very, I mean, it's not it's not your average black metal lyrics by far. I think it's a topic that I can't remember any other band who does this, and it's a kind of a frightening thing, this sleep paralyzing. I had a few episodes in my life where I experienced stuff like that. Not nearly as extreme as it could have been, but like this mere thought of waking up like unable to move, and you're like feeling a presence in the room that you know wants to kill you. For no reason, just and this is what many people experience, and it's kind of a frightening thing. I had, as I said, I had a few experiences with that. I had like an episode where I woke up and couldn't move at all, like not even open my eyelids, which is kind of a thing where you don't want to panic because it feels strange. And I have also had this hallucination things going on. I know nowadays I know what it is, but it's remembering all of that and listening to the music. It just gives me a great feeling of, I don't know, hostility, darkness, everything that I want to feel. I want to feel good, negative thoughts, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. The thing is, there's records that you connect with every great record on a different emotional or a different portion of the emotional spectrum. And I feel like if I think of like all of the best records in my life, I feel like Ruins of Beverast, Exuvia, there's an element of me that maybe is more thoughtful or maybe more reflective that connects to that. With Melano, it's like something is reaching inside of your guts and like squeezing it together, and it's this just like this rage that comes off this album, and this I'm trying to think of how I would kind of see the album in my mind's eye, but it's basically just like fucking nuclear warfare. I have never heard an album that kind of lives up to the, like when you were young and you would play music to people that didn't know black metal, and you thought to yourself, how would they experience this? I almost feel like that listening to the Akhlys album, which is like the first few times you hear it, it's like, how does a human being write this shit? But I'm gobsmacked by how good this album is. And what was interesting to me is you could kind of feel the hype to build up around this record. It was one of those great rare moments where there's this organic buzz building up around an album. I feel like David Morty kind of cottoned onto it and like realized, hey, when that first single came out, people really, really like this and they're really responding to it. So they did a smart thing, streamed the whole thing. I'm stunned by how people love this album as well. Something that's so relentless and so raw and uncompromising, and again, people have just responded to it phenomenally well.
But I think the guy is really, he knows which buttons to push right now. So I think this is why it does connect to so many people, because he know how to write great songs. And I mean, the previous Akhlys album has been good. I like it, but it's not great to me.
Yeah.
I did love the Nightbringer, or what's the other one, Bestia Arcana. I loved those a bit more. But this is like his top work. Everything fits. It's like great ideas, great compositions, great productions, great everything, and it really comes together seamlessly. It's impressive how this guy manages to be in so many bands, which sounds, I mean, not completely different, if we're being honest. I mean, there are like Nightbringer vibes and Bestia Arcana vibes, and it's like I think you can tell it's that guy. But yeah, the Akhlys album is like, yeah, that's definitely the top output he has done so far.
Yeah, so I think so. He's in 7 or 8 bands in total, which is also maybe just fucking nuts. But I mean, very deserving of a number one. And as a matter of fact, I was sitting here thinking to myself, if I would have felt bad not putting it at number one, and somebody else not mentioned it, because at least they should get their props somehow. But yeah, fantastic. Zen, your number one of 2020.
My number one is actually Nightcrown, which might be surprising. I don't know with this one, because I judge my number one ultimately on, because I don't know what I'd listened to the most over the course of this year and what I kept going back to quite frequently, and this was one of those albums that just kept reminding me of bands like, say, doesn't sound like it, but it gives me a vibe of like Dissection, like kind of mid-era Dissection in a lot of ways. And it even for some reason reminded me a fair bit of At the Gates, even though it sounds completely different. And I don't know, it's so well written. It has so melodic at the same time, yet it's not cheesy melodic, as Tentakel mentioned earlier. But I just think it's so well written, just insanely good.
Yeah, and it's funny how again, I think it speaks to the emotional, or that part of the emotional spectrum, or that where a record connects with you. Kelly T was mentioning the new Vide record, which I hadn't really spent a lot of time with until she kind of sent me a list beforehand, and then when I listened to it, it's like, this reminds me an awful lot of Merc Rider, but it doesn't. It's not the same kind of music whatsoever. I mean, they're both black metal, but Merc Rider is kind of really sort of almost proggy, high on fire type black metal, whereas Vide is this like lo-fi, really crusty, violent, crazy, grim stuff. But there just seems to be something that reminds you of it. I felt the same with Nightcrown. Actually, the first thing I thought of when I listened to it was Dissection. I kind of went back to Storm of the Light's Bane, and Somberlane, and feelings that I got when I listened to those records when I listened to the Nightcrown album. But I do agree with you. I think that kind of music has been done to death, and the fact that a band like Nightcrown can come out and put out something that really makes you kind of want to go back to and listen to it again and again. It speaks to their strength as songwriters.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of mid-era. Well, Storm the Light's Bane and the Somberlane, incredible albums, but they're not in terms of black metal. It's not really grim kind of black metal, but it's almost like a dark, majestic kind of feeling that you actually get from it, and I think that's translated in Nightcrown.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Okay, so my number one of 2020. Again, this was separated literally by decimals, but I am delighted that these guys are number one because I was a huge fan of their demo, The Firmament's Hand, which came out last year. I'd actually reached out to them to come onto the podcast, and Nasios, who's in the band, said to me, just hang on for a few months because we're busy finishing the full length, and we'll talk then. But I'm speaking of Utkena out of Greece. The album is called Necrosphere. It came out on Pest Productions. Again, I said this before. It's so great when you see a band do work on their or kind of perfect their craft over a period of albums. It's even more amazing when a band puts out a demo that is great, and there's an incredible amount of talent there, and then they put out a debut and it just blows you away completely. Like how a band that have they're young guys. I mean, I think Nasios is still doing his conscription in the army. But how a band sounds so refined and matured and evolved as songwriters as these guys ended up sounding on Necrosphere. I mean, for me, this combines the best of everything that I love in black metal, from kind of the second wave, Scandinavian stuff, through to early Rotting Christ, maybe even some later Rotting Christ stuff. But I feel like, in terms of Greek black metal, I really feel like Utkena have stamped down their authority now as the guys that set the standards for the local scene, and hopefully sparks more of a revival, or at least more attention to be paid to bands from that scene. But I think the record. My only wish is that it was a little bit longer. It's only 36 minutes, and it would have been great if it was 56 minutes. But hopefully that means they've got a lot of gas left in the tank for a sophomore album. But yeah, Necrosphere, phenomenal, absolutely fantastic. And I know Tentakel, when you check that out, you were very impressed as well.
Yeah, I was like, okay, it's just too late because I already made up my mind about the top 20, and I would have to like push it in somewhere and have to put everything down below, which to me would have been a bit unfair because the albums I put on there were like, because they had, as Zen said, it was like, to me it's also replay value, and the Utkena album didn't have the chance to show replay value, but I keep coming back to it since you mentioned it to me, and it would have made a spot on my top 20 definitely. It's definitely a great album. I haven't listened to the demo, so I don't know about the progression of the band, but it's definitely worth checking out.
Yeah, definitely check out that demo. It's very, very good. It's
I will.
It's a little bit more raw, obviously, than Next Fornix, but I mean, you could hear that the sound was busy developing there, you know, and it was going to kind of turn into what it ended up turning into. I also echo what you said in terms of replay value. That's a big chunk of what I base my decisions on. Is like, if somebody put down, you know, 5 records in front of me, which one am I going to be? Which will be my default to want to listen to? You know, and that's really in a like I said, in sort of a decimal kind of perspective, that's what separated my top 5, maybe even most of my top 10. You know, all of the records were you know, could very easily move up or you know fractionally or marginally down the list depending on the mood I'm in the day. Zen, did you check out the Utkena record?
I didn't actually have a chance. I blame Akhlys on this. For the last couple of weeks, because I'd never heard of the band before until you kind of mentioned them, and it's on my list to check out, but I had this other music to absorb before I got to that. So it was on my list. Now it's the first thing I'll listen to after this.
Well,
so I'll give you some feedback after.
For sure. No, drop me a line. Let me know. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. We've gone probably a little bit longer than you both intended, and I know you're busy, and I know you have a guest that's that's demanding of your attention, Zen. But yeah, guys, it was awesome catching up with you again, as it always is. I'm thoroughly looking forward to hearing what you put out next year. You know, and hopefully we can have another appearance on the podcast. You know, at a more appropriate time and one that's convenient for the both of you.
Let us put out the album first, because it will definitely come. No worries there. I think we have everything now to finish it, hopefully. Yes. But yeah,
very, very close.
We are hoping that we can announce it anytime soon, but not this year. We'll see.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. Well, guys, thank you so much.
Thanks for having us back.
My absolute pleasure, and all the best for 2021. We'll speak on the other side.
Yes. Definitely.
Take care, guys.
Thank you.
All the best. Bye-bye.
Bye.
there you go. My number one album of 2020, Next Fornix by Utkena, put out by Pest Productions. And quite frankly, I think I reiterated this many times in my conversation with Zen and Tentakel. I think pretty much any band on that top 10 could have been number one. It just depends on the day and on my mood. But invariably, Utkena were my band of choice, probably more days than most. So well done to those guys. And frankly, I say well done. I feel a little conceited saying well done because it's not exactly as though a album of the year for Into the Necrosphere is the greatest honor you could possibly bestow on a band. But for what it's worth, thank you very, very much to the bands for producing the kind of music that they did in 2020, and quite frankly, for making the year significantly more bearable than it ended up, or than it otherwise would have been. I had a great time catching up with Zen and Tentakel. I hope you guys thoroughly enjoyed that countdown and that discussion. And if you have not checked out any of the bands that we spoke about yet, then make sure that you do support the bands. Buy stuff from them on Bandcamp. If you see them, doing a live stream, make sure that you get tickets for that. Because that's the way these bands are going to survive through the next couple of months. God knows how long this fucking horse wank is still going to carry on. I know that they've just gone into tier 3 lockdown in London again because some 3 people got the sniffles. All the while, flu apparently is almost non-existent this year because it's not spreading somehow. But anyway, that's a discussion all of its own. For that and more cranky old man rants, let's, for the final time in 2020, turn our eyes to the news. And first up this week, Blind Guardian launched another Holy War live video. I would say to this, I have no idea why Blind Guardian continues to make music, and I have no idea who actually keeps listening to them, let alone why Nuclear Blast keep putting out their music. I mean, this is like, Blind Guardian to me are like the fucking David Hasselhoff of metal, who, ironically enough, he himself has just put out a metal record, apparently. Significantly more encouraging, Converge, new track streaming. Converge is among the bands to have their music featured in the soundtrack of the recently released video game Cyberpunk 2077. Very much looking forward to playing that. Although I'll probably wait about a year before that thing, I think before that thing will be properly playable, because apparently there's so many fucking bugs and so much bullshit to put up with. One thing that I did see that was funny, apparently there's this whole big discussion online amongst the woke now about the fact that you can determine the size of your penis, and I think you can determine the size of your foo-foo as well if you want to play as a female character. But the one thing that they're terribly upset about is that you can only choose a male or female voice aligned to your genitalia, which according to them is transphobic, because in 2020 nothing is beyond reprisal from the woke. But anyway, yeah, Converge have got new music out. Two Mold has also got new music out on the Cyberpunk 2077 soundtrack, and I would assume that both of those bands are going to be putting out new music next year, which makes me very excited about next year because, like I said earlier, we already know that the new Ruins of Beverast is coming out. I would assume a new Mayhem is probably on its way out, hopefully a new Marduk. We know for an absolute fact there's a new Antichrist Imperium record that's coming out next year, a new Voices record coming out next year, new Werewolves. You would hope new Akhlys. So I think 2021 is going to be an absolutely spectacular year. Although that being said, the one thing I always find interesting about like these top 20 lists or top 10 lists or whatever I do every year, it always seems to be that the bands I expected the most of over the course of the year, or at the start of the year, are the ones that rarely, if ever, will feature. And it's always the upstarts, the young bucks, who feature most prominently. So it'll be interesting to see. Could very well be that if Marduk put out a new record, that'll make the top 20, just as Anal Nathrak, changed their name from Anal Nathrak to Anal Nathkak in 2020. Inquisition let me down, Paradise Lost let me down, Enslaved let me down. I know I said to Tentakel I'd listen to it again, and I will. But at the moment, I'm still not convinced. I did try and listen to it again after the conversation that I had with him, and I don't know. Maybe it's just my tastes, and I like my music to be a little bit more sinister, but it just doesn't do it for me. Okay. Der Weg einer Freiheit re-signed to Season of Mist. That's a band that I've listened to a couple of times, and every time I listen to them, I like them, but they never ever really make me want to go back to them. But that being said, I will give them another try once I get through the mountain of other things that I've picked up on various end of year lists and whatnot. Yeah, I'll give them a listen. But anyway, they're staying with Season of Mist, which is important for you to know. Sylosis released new single following the release of Cycle of Suffering back in February. Sylosis staged a monumental live return at a sold-out Islington Assembly Hall in London. I think that takes about, if I'm not mistaken, it's the same venue, a cool 300 to 400 people. So calling it a sold-out show isn't exactly a big deal. But that being said, don't want to hate on Sylosis. I do really like them. I've liked them pretty much since they got started. I will be interested to see what they bring out next. Primal Fear, again, astonishing that this band continues to put out records. Taka to release split EP with Helheim. It says here, Norwegian black metal icon Host has cast some positivity into the hell that has been 2020 with the release of 2 Taka 10-inch split EPs, one with Death Cult on Edged Circle Productions and one with Whoredom Rife on Territor Possessions. And now, as the year draws to a close, a third split has been announced with Helheim through Dark Essence Records. We'll definitely check that out. That's coming out on the 5th of March, 2021. I'm a big fan of Taka, and I will very, very much look forward to this new EP. Asphyx, second new song from Necroceros, revealed. I am going to assume that Necroceros is a subtle tribute to Into the Necrosphere, to say thank you for me placing them on my top 50 death metal or favorite death metal bands list. And if you haven't checked that out yet, make sure that you do. Like I said, I'm going to be away for a couple of weeks, so you guys have plenty of time to delve into the archives. Speaking of which, you will notice that if you follow the show on iTunes or Stitcher or any other podcast service, I'm starting to rename some of the files or rename some of the episodes now as Classic ITN, and that is because I only have 100 hours on Spreaker. I'm not going to be paying for a fucking minute more. So it is what it is. I will have 100 hours worth of episodes or content on there at any given time. And when it gets to such a point that I reach my limit, I will turn a couple that I know have done really well in the past and that people downloaded a lot. I will kind of keep those on as Classic ITN. And the rest will be gone. You will, however, be able to check it out on YouTube. I don't have any limit there. Not least ways until they get rid of me. But I doubt that's going to happen. But anyways, yeah. So if you want to check out anything, all of the episodes will be on YouTube. But there'll always be like 100 hours worth of stuff on all the podcast services because my host Spreaker only allows me to put up so much before I have to start paying more money. And I've got other things to do with my cash, including doing some more hi-fi upgrades. I've got a few things in the offing, and I think definitely next year at some point I need to do an update. Maybe I will speak to my friend Terry Ellis about him coming onto my show. He's not a metal man by any stretch of the imagination, but I've mentioned it before. I was actually on his very awesome channel called Pursuit of Perfect System. If you're into hi-fi, or if you want to listen to the new Utkena or the new Omega Infinity or the new Tombs on something other than your fucking bullshit Apple AirPods, then check out his channel because you'll get to know all about speakers, amplifiers, and all sorts of other cool stuff. And then you'll be able to see your bank balance dwindle down to next to nothing in rapid time. Moonsmell launch second new track from upcoming album. I've given Moonsmell a huge amount of leeway throughout the course of their career. I was one of the few folks that didn't turn around and call them sellouts and scum when they brought out the Butterfly Effect, way back in, I think this was like 1999. And every single record they've put out, I've always kind of stuck by them. I've been interested in hearing the difference or the differences in sound and the different directions they've taken with every record. This new record, the Greater Good, sounds to me like, and I'm loath to say it, a fucking sellout. It sounds like the work of a bunch of posers and guys who have had a gander at the old pension funds and realized that it's running threadbare, and that apparently the Portuguese government is not going to pay for them to sit on their asses when they're old men. Both singles of this album have been absolute bullshit, and yeah, apparently the new album Hermitage is due out on. Why even call a record Hermitage? That also sounds terrible. But anyway, Hermitage out on February 26th, 2021 via Napalm Records. I don't even have to listen to that to know it's going to fucking suck. Rivers of Nile announced European tour. Awful lot of bands announcing tours. I am very much in doubt as to whether or not anything is actually going to come of those tours. In my opinion, I think that I actually have tickets, or at least my girlfriend's going to get us tickets, or was planning to get us tickets for the Mayhem show that's here in London in March, because it's happening around my birthday. But I'm not even sure that's going to happen. You know, we've just gone into another tier 3 lockdown, as I said to you guys before. I just feel like this is going to go on indefinitely. You know, I keep hearing fucking Nerd Pants Bill Gates pop up on every other news site saying how we're never going to return to the new normal. And then, you know, all of the fucking dickheads like Dee Snider and Alex Skolnick and, you know, every other, you know, Johnny come lately, expert in medicine, politics, and the economy, you know, parrots along whatever they say in the music media. This is really sad news. Sean Malone, the longtime bassist for Cynic, has died at the age of 50. That unfortunately is not the only death in the Cynic camp. Obviously, Paul Masvidal passed away. Well, no, sorry, not Paul Masvidal didn't pass away. Sean Reinert passed away in January this year. Paul Masvidal was the guy that broke the news about Sean Malone passing away. But yeah, very sad news. You know, such a influential band, and a band held in such high regard, and you know, 50 is 10 years away from 40, and I'm 40, and I fucking hate hearing shit like that because it freaks me out. But yeah, very sad news, and you know, my condolences to his friends and family. You know, to all the Cynic fans out there, you know, like I said, very, very sad news. But unfortunately, these things happen, and you know, Sean, along with you know, along with the rest of the band, will continue to live on in the memory and the legacy of the music that they left behind. Deeds of Flesh entire new album streaming. Deeds of Flesh's new album Nucleus is out, would have been out actually this past Friday on December 11th via Unique Leader Records. It's a tribute to Eric Lindbach, a member of the band that passed away. I've checked out some of the tracks that are going to be on this album, and from what I've heard, very good. You know, Deeds of Flesh have never been my favorite death metal band, but they've certainly always been a band who I've been interested to hear whenever they put out something new. I think Portals to Canaan was a really cool record, and like I said a couple of weeks ago when I spoke about them, the title track of their first record, Trading Pieces, was one of those songs that you play to somebody whenever you want to tell them, when you're a fucking dumbass teenager, that you listen to metal and you want to scare the bejesus out of them. So, you know, if nothing else, they brought me great joy in that regard. Okay, so we move on to the Democrats' guide to rock music. What do they have on Blabbermouth? Sepultura announced fall 2021 European tour with Sacred Reich and Crowbar. That would be great. I like me some Crowbar very much. And I really like Sepultura, as I've said many times before. Sacred Reich, not so much. I frankly don't know how anybody could stand to be on a tour bus with Phil Ryan for 5 minutes, let alone 5 weeks. But, you know, if it happens, it happens. And I may go see them and then go out for some fresh air when Sacred Reich come on stage. What else is going on here? Bullet for My Valentine releases Venom Spiced Mead. Everybody is releasing booze nowadays. I mean, and I thought that the ultimate irony was Metallica releasing whiskey right around the time that James Hetfield is back in rehab. You know, I don't want to not to denigrate his personal struggles, but yeah, I'm not so sure that if you're in rehab that it's necessarily sending a consistent message releasing whiskey around the same time. Watch Sepultura's Eloy Casagrande play Metallica's Battery. This dude is a bad man. He is amazing on the drums. I listened to this Battery cover. It is fucking phenomenal, just as all of his drum videos are. And I mean, firstly, I feel sorry for those drum skins because the guy is beating them like they cussed his mama. But yeah, just a great drummer. And I was always a big fan of Igor's drumming. And I was scared that when he left Sepultura that they would really lose something, more so actually than I was when Max, picked up his fucking, picked up the chip on his shoulder and buzzed off along with his wife. But I think that Eloy is more than a capable replacement for Igor. And the stuff that he's been doing on the recent Sepultura albums has been top notch. The stuff that he's doing on some of these covers videos that he's been releasing is amazing as well. Some of the song choices, Suspect, Slipknot, People Equal Shit in particular being the big one that I wouldn't have chosen, but it'll get him the clicks, no doubt. People Equal Shit, by the way, is the fucking stupidest name for a song I maybe have ever heard. It's almost as stupid as off that same record, the lyric, "If you're 5'5", I'm 6'6". I may or may not have been the leader of a satirical website that featured a lunatic religious figure who used to poke fun at the metal folk through various exposés and articles. And one of the things that you could count on like clockwork was that any time that you said anything bad about Slipknot, a bunch of their fans would immediately try and scare you by just inanely yelling, "If you're 5'5", I'm 6'6", to which you go, "Your point being?" Anyways, Bush's Gavin Rosdale ponders the custom of handshaking. Why do we do this? Bush, if you're from South Africa, is almost instantly a mark of, number one, a man that suffers from a lack of testosterone, two, a man who's probably midway through a breakup, and three, a fucking geek. Shit band, and Gavin is a wank stain. Ex-Metallica bassist Jason Newsted shares 2019 performance video of his cover of Neil Young's "Rockin' in the Free World." I fucking love that song. The Neil Young version in particular. This version not so great, let's be honest. Jason Newsted is a great bassist. I personally think Metallica live were way better with Jason than they are with Robert. But Jason does not have the vocal chops of Neil Young. And, I know this is not a fucking old man rock show, even though this is an old man yelling segment. But anyways, good on him for releasing that, and hopefully the kids that check it out go check out the original. Lamb of God announces its second coffee blend, Overlord. Yawn. I'm surprised that they didn't accompany that with Lamb of God announces its second coffee blend, Overlord, dedicated to overthrowing Trump. I can't hate on Lamb of God. I thought the last Lamb of God record was very, very good. Actually, speaking of which, honorable mentions. I didn't even mention anything at the top of the show, so this is an Easter egg if you've listened this far. So honorable mentions for this year, what would they be? I think the And Oceans record is definitely there. The Cripple Black Phoenix album is definitely there. Very, very good album. Not metal, but good. Lyrically, a little too woke for my taste, but so be it. What else would have come into the honorable mention stuff? The Tribes of Pazuzu EP, brilliant. The Almerkme and Ruins of Everast EP, also brilliant. The Carpe Noctem split that they did with another band whose name escapes me, also out on Van Records, also fucking top notch. I'm trying to think if there was anything else. I'd probably put the Lamb of God record. I would definitely put the Lamb of God record, I think, in honorable mentions. Maybe even the new Sepultura. The new Blaze of Perdition, Nexion, definitely. If you've not checked out Seven Oracles, it's a fucking superb record. And again, touch and go as to whether or not it was going to be in my favorite albums of the year. Can't can't remember. I can't think of any off the top of my head other than that. But those would certainly qualify as honorable mentions. One band that will never make it onto my top 10, 20, top 100, or honorable mentions list: Butcher Babies, who have released a new single, "Sleeping with the Enemy." Is there a filing system or an app that some bands use to come up with fucking song titles that sound like they've been used by 9,074 other bands? Because if ever there was a fucking song title that met that description, it is this: "Sleeping with the Enemy." I mean, Butcher Babies has always been muck, but oh god, this song I briefly listened to and it was diabolical. I mean, I know Carla seems like a really lovely lady, as does Heidi. And I've got to say, kudos to Charlie Benante, because he's he's not the sprightly young buck that he once was. For him to have him a woman like Carla is saying something. But musically, they may be other folks' bag, but they're not mine. Let's see what else there is to talk about. Weirdly enough, we've yet to see Corey Taylor give his opinion on any of the relevant issues of the day. This one was interesting, though. Nickelback bassist Mike Kroger on Pantera. They were our brothers, man. I'm very surprised by this because I cannot recall a single time when I ever saw anyone from Pantera wearing a Nickelback t-shirt. I certainly don't think one Philip, Horace, and Selma would have done so. I don't recall Dimebag ever talking about Nickelback in any interviews. I do find it really, really amusing. I mean, I could be completely off base here. I'm happy to be corrected, but I do find it hilarious that it seems to me that, especially with Dimebag and with Pantera, a lot of bands seem to have sort of co-opted fandom and friendship and brotherhood, and they act like they were all Dimebag's best mate. Maybe he took them out for drinks one night and made them feel really great about themselves, and hence why they now think they're bestie mates. But it feels to me like an easy way to get yourself onto the pages of a venerable website like Blabbermouth, or at least get some attention, because let's be honest, it's been a while since Nickelback has told us how we remind them. I don't actually remember the lyrics of the rest of that shit song. But anyway, like I said, I might be wrong. Oh, one mainstay, though. Why is Rob Halford. Why is there little mention of KK Downing in Rob Halford's book, The Judas Priest Singer Response? He responds to just about everything he could possibly respond to every single goddamn week, every other day. This is very sad. Former Mushroomhead singer Waylon Reeves diagnosed with colon cancer. Not being the biggest Mushroomhead fan over the last couple of years, but I will admit, again, falling into maybe the guilty pleasures category, there's a couple of Mushroomhead tracks off their first record and off their second record that are fucking badass, and live when they were playing around those records, absolutely awesome. But man, Waylon is mighty young to be getting colon cancer, and again, makes me fucking paranoid. I don't really think there's anything else to talk about, and I'm not all that keen on closing off on such a fucking bum note. But I think, folks, that is about it. We've got Death Angel's Will Carroll looks back on his battle with COVID-19. It was 1,000 times worse than the flu. I mean, he was the dude that saw visions and saw Satan in his dreams when he had coronavirus. But yeah, if that photo was actually one taken while he was getting treatment, that dude had a bumpy couple of days. I think that's about it, folks. There will, however, be fire spitting aplenty when I return to my regular scheduled programming on the 12th of January. That's right. I actually double-checked the date. I know I've faffed about with first or second week of January, but let's make it January the 12th. I'll be back. I've got some guests in the pipeline already, so looking forward to returning to you all. And again, thank you very, very much for checking out this episode. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you enjoyed all of the episodes this year. However you choose to spend Christmas and New Year, stay safe, keep it real on the streets. From Mean Street Studios, I'm wishing all of you bad motherfuckers a fond farewell.